Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director.
Because if there's one thing this film has, it's ambitions. Well, sort of. It's got ambitions to be visually stunning, which it is at times. It's got ambitions to reunite a fan base, which it isn't going to do. It's also got ambitions to sell truckloads of toys, which it will, but it's lacking in ambition in a few key areas. Telling a cohesive story, for example. I don't know if there was a serious offer on energy drinks when the script was being written, but this film just cannot keep still. It's on such a rush to keep moving from location to location that there's no time to settle in, understand what's going on, why this film is making what is in essence a very, very simple story seem incredibly complicated for no reason at all. I mean, you could easily strip out half the plot, locations, and highly marketable characters and not affect a thing. Which actually is one hell of an achievement when you think about it. Anyway, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, the surviving Resistance faces the First Order once more in the final chapter of the Skywalker saga. And on one level, it is final, with several actors stating that they will not be returning to the franchise, which I believe until Disney gets the checkbook out again in about 10 years. There's also the sense of the end of an era about this film. There's also the sense of quite a few more films being set up, but where the similarly owned MCU has a cohesive narrative and always feels like it's building up something, this new trilogy has felt disjointed and thrown together, which should not have happened with one of the most beloved franchises in cinema. I accept that there are fewer characters to base the universe around in Star Wars and in Marvel, but you can always make new ones, you do know that, right? Oh, and speaking of characters, if you are going to bring back old characters who allegedly have a role in the narrative, then do something with them. Don't just bring them back for seemingly the sake of bringing them back for the old timers to swoon, and seemingly for no other reason, which is just so frustrating when this film has some pretty good ideas. It's got some horribly misjudged ones as well, especially one moment towards the end that just, whew, you'll know it when you see it. It's just so frustrating because on one level, it's still Star Wars. You've still got the lightsaber battles, the space battles, the aliens that are practical effects, although not as good as the ones in Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, but that's beside the point. The cheesy moments that made me grin, the visuals that made me marvel were still there, but this was just so unsatisfying as an experience. It's like gorging on candy floss. Yeah, it tastes great and you feel really hyper at the time, but then it wears off and you feel like you could have bought a healthier lunch and then you've forgotten about it in a week. That's what this film is like. It moves at such a pace that there's no time to settle in and understand who's doing what and why, or even why people are doing what they're doing, because if I took a shot every time someone did something because the Force told them to, I'd have drunk enough Baileys, I'm in training for Christmas Day, to overlook the many, many plot holes in this film. Oh, and it wasn't just me. Script guy went as well. He saw it in 3D with all the other children and didn't really notice the difference other than, and I quote, it added depth to the huge scenery. I saw it in 2D as God intended and was fine with the scenery. Although Disney has sent a message to theatres urging them to post warnings to moviegoers that the film contains scenes with flashing strobe lights which can induce seizures in those with photosensitive epilepsy, so just be careful out there. Anyway, Script Guy and I, between us, spotted several plot holes, some of which we didn't mind, but some we really did and actively impacted on our enjoyment of the film. The narrative is somehow childishly simple and yet overly complicated at the same time, to such an extent that I can see younger viewers being confused. It's also pretty dark as well, not just visually but tonally, to the extent that I wanted to check that the director wasn't operating after watching The Dark Knight a few times too many. The cast is fine. I was reassured that unlike poor James Dean, who will be starring in a new film despite the slight fact that he's been dead for 64 years, Carrie Fisher was recreated by clever editing and using footage that had already been shot. I still don't get the appeal of Adam Driver, but he worked well in the film. Daisy Ridley was incredible, but along with so many other elements, but they're all just wasted. It's so frustrating, and I'm not even that big of a Star Wars fan. This film feels like such a course correction after the reaction to The Last Jedi that it's gone too far the other way. At least that had a relatively simple narrative and was a more cohesive experience. At least it remembered that if you're going to have a ticking clock, then reference it. Make the audience feel each precious grain of sand run through the hourglass as opposed to here where it's sort of there but not really. Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker needs to calm down. Strip out half of its plot points and a thread or two and use the saved time to develop character rationales and character itself. Make this feel like the end to a cohesive structured trilogy and not just 3 films under the same banner. Hire an extra lighting person or 10 and allow this film time to breathe. In 2015, I sat and watched The Force Awakens with my inner 8-year-old on full display grinning like a loon. In 2019, I was confused and saddened. I highly doubt this new trilogy will weather the storm of time like the first trilogy, but it's going to do a hell of a better job than the prequel trilogy. Probably. Look, if nothing else is on, just go and check this out. Otherwise, just don't bother. But what did you guys think, and what have you made of this new trilogy as a whole? Comment below, let me know. I'm Daniel, it's been a dunking. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe.